We've talked previously about just generally like using Twitter and what it could be for artists. So this is kind of a little bit more specific, a little bit more of a deep dive. So if you haven't checked out that first episode, it might be worthwhile to you to go back and look at that. Can't remember which number episode it was, but yo, welcome. Hi, hello. How's everyone doing? I'm like transitioning in my mind. I'm getting settled.
Right. We hope everyone's doing all right out there now. Might as well just hop right into it. Twitter, I believe, Nora, you did say that it is your favorite platform. I can't remember.
I love Twitter. And okay, well, I'll let you finish, but I also want to tell the story of how you and I met because it's a Twitter story.
Right. It's also my favorite platform to use. It's simple and quick, but it also can lead discussions. And again, I honestly, especially at this point, I think it's the most like if you're trying to really network and connect with people and genuinely build those relationships, I actually do believe that Twitter is the best way to do that. Not to say that you can't do that on other platforms, but I do believe that Twitter is the best platform to do that. And I can honestly say that it's one of the big platforms that helped me during my come up as well. So it's a useful platform. I think on surface level, if you look at it at surface level, it's very easy to say there's not a lot there, but genuinely, if you dive deep and you put in the work, there's a lot that it offers.
And I will say, Sto and I we've done an Instagram conversation around this. There's so many different platforms. So I hope you don't take this as saying you have to be on Twitter and, become like a freaking, I don't know, like influencer on Twitter or whatever. That's not the goal. Our goal in these series is to give you the options and the tools so that you can pick and choose which social media platform makes the most sense for you and what you can do on each one to grow your brand. You don't have to be everything, everywhere, all the time. So I hope this doesn't add any extra pressure of like, damn, now I got to go create a Twitter and now I got to go get Twitter famous, because that's not even like the effective way. But hopefully if you are on Twitter, or Twitter is something that's intriguing to you, this will help you kind of navigate it in a way that makes sense for you. So for folks who are joining us, welcome. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the comments. Please jump into the conversation if you have your own questions or your own tips or things that have worked for you. And definitely make sure you hit the subscribe and the like and all that good stuff to help us make sense of this social media platform. Twitter is my favorite platform, and I love it because it allows, I'm like in my head all the time. I'm an ideas person. And so Twitter really allows me to engage with people on that level of ideas, common interests. And there's a real time aspect to it where you can really talk and get to know people. Sto and I met on Twitter.
Right.
I think we met so this is how Twitter works, right? I also met my business partner at Culture Fix. I met Natalie Crew on Twitter. We started Culture Fix. We used to do a weekly Twitter chat. I think through there, I met Mikkel Clark, who at the time was running Artistic Manifesto. So he and I started working together. I worked with Artistic Manifesto for a minute. Through them, I met Darren Gooden. Darren then somehow introduced me to Sto, like maybe through a tweet or something like that. That's how Sto and I met. And then we built a relationship on Twitter just by like Sto would drop gems and I would add to them, or I would drop something and Sto would add to that conversation. And we just built a relationship of I think, mutual respect through ideas and the ways that we engaged with each other in this very open public platform. And then we met in real life, and then I peer pressured him into doing office hours with me. But what I hope you take away from that story is that sometimes the people you meet starts at a relationship that happened like way back when or somewhere else. And maybe that wasn't the relationship, but it led to something else. So really inviting you to think about networking and relationships and social media as kind of long-term rather than transactional. And then also the way that it sometimes takes time to cultivate a relationship with someone, to get to know each other. I think Sto and I were like tweeting for at least a couple of years before we actually met, before office hours came to be. And so what we'll share with you today are like tips and some of our best practices, but that none of this is like immediate, right? The thing about social media, and then we'll really jump into it today, the thing about social media is that it's social, and it's really about building relationships, building community, getting to know people. And sometimes that takes time. And so if you're in it and you leave, you're like, dang, all right, didn't get what I want, bye. Well, you're not giving anyone a chance to get to know you. You're not giving anyone a chance to really bond with you. And so whether it's Twitter or Instagram or any platform, consistently showing up lets people get to know you, trust you, build that rapport. And then that's the thing that you'll leverage.
Yeah, I tried to actually look up when like the oldest tweet that the two of us like had, but of course there's hundreds of them now, so it's impossible to find. But yeah, with Nora and I, like she mentioned, like it took years to get to this point, but in doing that, we were able to really build like a really like steady relationship, and one that, you know, I genuinely believe is going to last a really long time. And so, oh yeah, let's just dive right into these questions.
So our first question, and so Twitter really is this question of how do I curate my timeline to see the type of content I want, right? So your timeline shows you the tweets, shows you who you're following. And depending on who you follow, you can have very different experiences, be around very different communities of people, right? Be around, right? And so how you curate your timeline can really impact the experience that you have on Twitter. So do you want to start with this question? And then I'll
yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had to fix my camera. So this is really important. And I know for me personally, like I genuinely, it's something that I have to go back and like refine every so often, just to make sure I'm getting like not just the right information, but I mean, this sounds strange, but like a positive timeline. Like if all you're following is kind of like more negativity and just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but if all the content you're seeing is negative and all this other stuff, you're going to start taking that on yourself. You know, you should try to follow people and, you know, engage with people that, and I don't want to say positivity because I hate saying like, oh yeah, you got to be positive all the time, because that's not possible. But like the type of content that you actually want to see. So if you're a journalist, you should be following other writers. If you're an artist, you also should be following other journalists, but also be following other artists, festival curators, all that stuff. Because for one, it just does put you on their radar, even if it's just a bit. But also, again, you're able to, when you open up the app, it's not just a bunch of junk and just a bunch of useless stuff that don't really serve its purpose. If you're treating your artistry and whatnot as a business, you know, I feel like your timeline should also reflect that.
Yeah, and I will say, you don't have to follow anyone, right? If your relationship like is based on social media, oh, if I don't follow them, they're not going to follow. Like that's not a real relationship.
Right.
So if you find people where like their tweets make you anxious or stress you out, or you find yourself thinking, wow, that's so stupid, unfollow them or delete them or mute them, block them, whatever. All these tools to get rid of the kind of content that doesn't serve you. And that's okay. Like social media should be a place that provides value to you. And if it's not providing value, get rid of it. The other mistake that I see people making is that they will follow someone just because that account has a lot of followers or just because they're famous. And you also don't have to do that. You can if that content is interesting to you, but I think the value of Twitter is really in being able to have conversations with other people. And so if you're trying to tweet at like whoever blue verified check mark with tons and tons of followers, and that's just the kind of content you're going to see, you're going to miss the space to have intimate conversations. And so really think about, is it worth your while to follow someone of that, you know, with that kind of content? It might be, and that might bring you joy and happiness, and that's great, but you don't have to do it. I would also say, just because you follow someone on Instagram doesn't mean you need to follow them on Twitter. You're connected on Clubhouse doesn't mean you need to be, right? You can pick and choose what platform it makes sense for you to connect with certain people, and you don't have to be everywhere all the time. In terms of curating the timeline, really look at one of the things I tell my clients all the time is to, one, look at people who you do follow, who you do like, and look at who they're following. And that's a really good way to, you're like, oh, I like Nora, I trust what she's putting out. Chances are I'm also going to follow people who are aligned with me, or, I find value in. So that's a great way to start to curate timeline. I also refer artists to your tweets all the time, Sto. You're like, follow, Sto will send out tweets where he's like, here's 13 people you should all follow. And so I refer people to those tweets because that's like a super easy shortcut to find the best folks on Twitter. So that's another way to curate your timeline. And part of it is it takes time to make that. So, in the beginning, play around, follow people, unfollow people, do a little research, look at people who are doing stuff that you're interested in that you can also follow. And so something you said that I think is really important is follow people in your industry for sure, but also follow people from different industries. Like I follow the Monterey Bay Aquarium because they do like live streams of the animals in the aquarium, talk about science stuff, and it has nothing to do with work, but look at how happy it makes my face. And so, curating it and thinking about yourself broadly in terms of the kinds of stuff that you'll find value in.
Exactly. First off, shout out to Nick Marsh. I apologize I didn't shout you out before. And then, Serial Sensei nailed it. Never feel bad about unfollowing people.
Ever.
Because at the end of the day, especially in the beginnings, as you're trying to, figure out where you fit in and stuff like that, this is just social media. If there's no real consequences for unfollowing people. So don't feel bad if it's not serving its purpose, or if it's bringing you negativity, stress, anxiety, like Nora said, hit that unfollow button, hit that mute button. It's okay to do that.
So brings us to point 2. So you've curated your timeline. You're seeing people who are interesting, that you're interested in, that are talking about interesting things. What's the best way to connect with people and start kind of building that relationship?
Right. Well, number one, don't be spamming people in the DMs immediately. Anyway, if all you're going to
don't ever spam people.
Right. DMs. Don't ever spam people in the DMs. I thought that we were past this problem, but at least once a week I will have someone just copy and paste a tweet or something like that, and then send it to me in attempts to get me to listen to their music and stuff like that. Nora talks about this all the time, starting off the conversation with an ask with someone that you're trying to build this long-term connection with isn't always the best way to go. If you're trying to build a natural relationship, an organic one at that, it's okay to just start with the introductions. It's okay to it's okay to be like, hey, here's what I do. What exactly do you do? It can be a fair exchange, I guess, is what I'm saying as well. But, just hopping in people's DMs, just give this a spin, or can you write about this, or, whatever, slow down. And the other thing that Nora mentioned earlier is that relationship is going to take time, actual time. Even if they end up following you back or whatever, that doesn't mean that you can just, all right, I'm in. Let me just fire off all these links and I'll ask all these questions and stuff like that. Because the thing is as that relationship builds organically, and as, if you're talking to someone and you're engaging with their content and they're engaging back, when it comes time for that ask to come around, it's no longer really an ask. They are already on board to help and stuff like that. The other thing I'll say in terms of the best way to connect is networking horizontally, working with people that have the same goals and stuff in mind as you do. And that's not to say you can't like, look up and do stuff like that. But I see so many people who hop on Twitter and Nora, again, she just mentioned this, like just go into all the verified accounts trying to link up with or get an interaction out of, or XYZ from a verified account. It honestly, it doesn't make sense, and you're going to find yourself more disappointed more often than not. And in a lot of cases, the verifieds that you're trying to get to, they have a team, and you're not even talking to the actual person. You're just talking to like a social media manager or something like that. Work with the people and talk to the people, network with the people that have some of the same goals as you do, because you're guaranteed, to see more engagement, and in a lot of cases more collaboration. It's literally why Office Hours is here, because of Twitter.
Well, and that values alignment, right?
Yeah.
The common vision, the common values, that's actually the thing that's going to make people want to collaborate with you, right? Not the fact that you make great music or whatever. It's really some of those other factors. But even before you ever think about getting into the DMs, right? The timeline is a place to connect with people. That's where you meet people. That's where you say, oh, this person's cool. Let me follow them. Let me learn. Let me Google them, right? Let me click through to some of the other places where I can connect with them. And so some of the ways that you can, because for folks who are new to Twitter or unfamiliar with Twitter, it can feel like you're in a big ass crowded room and you're just screaming into the void.
Right.
And maybe someone will hear you, maybe they won't. So it really is about how do you say things so that people want to hear what you have to say. So one way to do that is to participate in activities on Twitter. So really look, and back in the day, this was much more relevant, but still I think Twitter chats are a great place to find like-minded people and to have conversations about things in a kind of curated, right? So a Twitter chat is like, if Twitter is this big conference hall, the Twitter chat is like a small room that a bunch of you are in. And so it's so much easier to connect with people and exchange ideas with people and get heard, have conversations. So definitely find those kinds of those spaces and start to participate in those Twitter chats. And you can Google them and see what's happening where. It's also a great way to get into things internationally or like in different markets. So still, I would say Twitter chats. Two, what I would say is make sure that all of your foundational basics are in place, that you have a bio, that you have a photo, that you have a banner, that all of those things tell me about you, so that when I see a tweet and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, let me go learn more about this person, you're making a virtual first impression that's going to connect and resonate with me. That on your profile, real quickly, I understand who you are, what you do, what you're about. A lot of folks there's a lot of gaps there, but before I go to your website, that should tell me everything I need to know. And then third is make sure that you're tweeting. If you don't say anything, I don't know that you're there. And that's not the same thing as retweeting other people's content. It's not the same thing as, maybe responding to someone with like, ha, 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 or that's
right.
But you have something to say. And I think for artists, Twitter is a great place to expand your brand and lead into the thing that gives you personality outside of music. Is it sports? Is it politics? Is it, what else out of your thing can you talk to people about? Sto talks about like video games. I think about Dart Adams, who talks about Celtics basketball. Like outside of buy my music, here's what I'm working on. What else do you have to say that can make me connect with you? And then really in that conversation, which brings me to point number 4, is when you do respond to people, make sure that you're responding in a way where you're adding to the conversation, where you're showing some kind of personality. I use this example all the time. I connected with someone, and I don't even remember what the original tweet was, but he responded with, he's a photographer out of Columbus, actually. So he responded with like an office GIF. And then I responded with an office GIF. And then he responded to and we had a whole conversation in office GIFs, which I was like, oh, this person is funny and creative. And that led to.
Probably the homie Kenneth, actually.
Yes. Yeah, it was totally Ken. And so that's how we connected. right? So things that don't always are about the sell, but are about our genuine connection, as if we were two people having a conversation. Serial Sensei says, if you make yourself a familiar face and have genuine conversations, then everything else will fall into place. Then I know you. So then when you slide in my DMs, you're not the stranger, you're this friend that I have. And we're going to talk about that in a second. The other thing, and Nick, thank you for bringing this up. The first thing is when someone's Twitter timeline is just the wall of links to Instagram. You totally, Serial Sensei says, that's a quick unfollow. You can totally link your accounts, but because Instagram has such a different language than Twitter, you're much better off just repurposing that content. And especially now, because Twitter has fleets and they have all these different kind of ways you can get on Twitter, you can take the same content that you have from your website, your blog, Facebook, whatever platform, and repurpose it, but to make sure that you're doing it in a way where you're speaking the language of Twitter rather than speaking the language of Instagram and then wonder why no one on Twitter understands you. The same thing goes with, like, if all you're doing is retweeting people, I'm not going to follow you because you're not giving me anything original or creative. So make sure that you're putting your perspective.
Just quickly, if you post on Instagram, just take that same picture, re-upload it. Either, shorten the caption that you used on Instagram or make a new one. I promise you will get more interaction doing that than you will using the share feature. I promise you that.
So we've touched on this a little bit already, but once you've built that connection, you've made that relationship, how then can you leverage it into an opportunity or a collaboration or whatever else?
Right. Honestly, and like, again, a lot of this, it takes time. You gotta give the relationship time to blossom and all that other jazz. But in terms of turning it into an actual opportunity, sometimes one thing I like to do is, instead of being like, okay, what can you do for me? I would rather start with, okay, well, what can I do for you, or how can I help you out? And a lot of times that'll catch people off guard because, especially in the social media age and how easy it is to follow, unfollow, mute, all that other jazz, that'll cause them to stick around and see what's up, simply based off the fact that you took time to see what they're doing versus, all right, well, can you promote this? Can you do this for me? And, all this other stuff. So that's one way. And then, an interaction. Another way is just actually taking time to research the people that you're interacting with. I feel like a lot of times people hop on Twitter and like, all right, I'm going to follow all the famous people. I'm going to hit them all up. And then, I'm going to blow up from there. No, instead, like let's say you want to get on a certain publication. Like, I feel like this happens a lot where people are like, all right, well, I want to get on this publication. Take an interaction, or maybe even if it's an interaction that you start where you're engaging with their content, or maybe they hit you back and stuff like that or whatever, but go to that publication, find the writer specifically and follow them. Or even in the festival circuit, I was just reading today, actually, follow the people that curate the festival. Don't follow South by Southwest. They don't give a damn about what links you send. They get spam all the time. Follow the actual people who are curating these festivals. And South by Southwest is a bad example for another reason, but whatever. These other festivals are, and here we go. Here's a better example. As we head towards spring and summer, and more festivals start doing virtual stuff, link up with those curators, and instead of just being like, okay, hey, here's my music, support what they're doing, because people notice that. So then when it's time for them to start looking at, okay, who do I want in the festival, or whatever, and I'm not just saying festival, whatever opportunity it is that you're chasing, if you are building a relationship and supporting that specific person, that person then goes to bat for you when it's time to go through all the people that are sending music or trying to get insert opportunity here, because you've been around and you've been supporting and doing that genuinely. So that I like to say, if you're going to interact and you want to get something out of the relationship, start by seeing what you can do for them first.
And that piece about researching the actual decision makers is also great for LinkedIn, right? If you can't find them on Twitter, that's a great way to look for who's the writer, who's the curator, who's the decision maker, and connecting with them and building a relationship on there. The thing that I would add is I think sometimes people think of the DMs as only a place for making an ask, but the DMs can also be a place to deepen the conversation. So we had a great back and forth on the timeline, or you said something that really sparked my interest, or, and then you can move that conversation into the DMs, which is essentially like you're texting each other now.
Like a follow-up.
Yeah, to follow the conversation, go deeper. And so you can still cultivate the relationship there. And then say, hey, maybe we should get on a call and see where the synergy is. Or, hey, I really am interested in this. Here's what I do. Maybe I can offer something.
Right.
And so, thinking, there's so many ways to turn Twitter into an opportunity, but I really would push you to think more broadly.
Yeah.
Also, and again, coming back to Twitter chats and specifically using hashtags, there are specific hashtags on Twitter that are just for opportunities.
Yeah.
Call for proposals. If you have an idea to pitch or you're looking for grants, boom, that's the place you want to go. There's also journals requests for journalists who have requests, and maybe you want to get your PR game up. That's the hashtag to use. And so you can be really proactive, or even looking up combinations of words, searching the kind of words, keywords that you're looking for that, I don't know, hiring, social media, if you're looking to get hired, right? And you can start to do proactive searches for these kinds of things and then use that. I know tons of people who get hired off of Twitter. And so being mindful about sharing, putting yourself out there, but also looking for those kinds of opportunities can make Twitter a really great place for you. Overall, what I would say is that for creative entrepreneurs, Twitter is a huge space to network, where you can come across and interact with all kinds of people throughout the ecosystem of whatever industry you're in. As long as you approach people like people.
Yeah.
And I've connected with people on sports. I've connected with people just off of an idea or a perspective I've had. When you come and you say, look, I have something to offer, right? Here's my ideas are valuable. The way that I think is valuable. The way that I frame things is valuable. My sense of humor is valuable. You come not as a fan or a groupie or someone trying to get a job. You come as a peer and an equal. And that is what allows a relationship to develop.
Yeah.
Once you develop that, and again, this is one of those things that's true across any platform, is when you come and you say, look, here's what I know, I'm going to share it, here's what I think. And it allows us to connect off of that commonality, common perspective, common value, common interest, common sense of humor, whatever. Then that can be, now we have roots, so that whatever happens in terms of, do we collaborate, do we not, we're still grounded in something that's not transactional. And that's what's going to set you up for long-term success.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Y'all, that was 30 minutes.
I was just going to say the same thing. Damn, we kind of flew by, and I feel like we covered a lot.
For those of you who have been hanging out with us, please make sure you hit the subscribe and like the video. Share it with your friends.
Yeah.
At the point where people DM me with just a link where I'll send them some of these episodes, because I'm you clearly didn't research me before you reached out with so share it with your friends. And also Sto and I do this for love and because we really want to see folks shine. But if you can and would like to support office hours, the link for that is in the description below. It's also in the chat that's next to you. So that helps us just do things a little more professionally, better quality, things like that. Sto, any final things before we wrap today?
I'm literally just gonna echo what you said. please, please, please leave a like. I know it sounds crazy, but it helps get the video in front of more people who are looking for content like this. Again, hit the subscribe. We're at 228 subscribers. Like we're not even a full year into it yet, and we're already there. We appreciate all of you for coming through. Yeah, hit the links below. And if there's any topics that you want us to cover, leave those in the comments as well. If you have other questions about these topics, leave those in the comments too. If you're new, go check out the previous 21 episodes. There's a lot of it's really weird to even say that there's 20 plus episodes out there, but that's a lot of game to take and soak in. Grab your notepad, throw on a little instrumental record real quick, take some notes. You know, we're here for you guys. Yeah, join us. What's next? Not in 2 weeks. Okay, so 2 Tuesdays from now. And we'll be talking about Instagram. So yeah, we appreciate everyone for coming through. This has been Office Hours. I'm Big Sto. That's Nora. And wear a mask.
Wear a mask. Stay home. We'll see you next time.
All right. Peace, guys.
Bye.